Theron Sannai. Last time we were talking about the formation of the ego, how the ego is formed or how the ego manifests, and what are the consequences. There are many consequences. We face them every day. We means the entire world. The entire world experiences it, and the world can't come out of it. The world is stuck. But everybody wants to be happy. But no one can. Happiness is far beyond than they ever can think. No one can achieve happiness. No one can achieve happiness due to ego, due to the ego. That's why we need to know about the ego, and that's why we should eradicate the process of the ego. Therefore, every time we meet, we will discuss about the ego. We will discuss about your life, which means the ego again. But that's not the life. That's not your life, actually. But alas, you have to live. You have to live in the ego. Therefore, you are restless. Therefore, you have desires, because the ego has desires. The mind doesn't have any desire, but ego has desires. And you have aversion. You have to compete with others because you feel your existence. When you feel your existence, you feel the existence of others. When the self is created, others, the term others is also created. When you draw a line on the table, now here you can see this board. When I draw a line, this line creates two parts. That means you separated it by drawing a line. This is the problem. When you draw this line, the ego exists as well as the others. Now, this is you, or this is the ego, and this is the others. You didn't create others. Actually, if you have a power not to create others, you never do that because you don't like others. You means, again I'm talking about the ego. The ego doesn't like others. The ego wants to be superior. Perhaps it likes others because then by putting them down, he can feel superiority. Otherwise, the ego doesn't want others. But the problem is when the ego is created, the others are also created. Therefore, you can't stop that. The ego is created due to this line, ladies and gentlemen. It's like this line. The body is separated due to this line. In this case, you don't have to eradicate this one. That means this is the ego. This is the other. You don't have to eradicate the ego. You don't have to eradicate the others. You need to erase or eradicate the line. That's what the Buddha's teaching for. The Buddha didn't ask us to eradicate the ego, because we can't. That's why there's a process. We need to stop the process, or we need to cease the process. We can't eradicate this. But people who are ignorant, and if they don't know about the reality, they try to eradicate others. That's the first thing they do. They try to eradicate others. If you don't like someone, then what should you do? Not you, but what should they do? Kill them. Kill them or destroy them. Now they don't have others. Each time when you compete with someone, you have to win. There are two ways to win. You use your abilities to win, otherwise you use your abilities to destroy the other side. Destroy your opponents. That's how people win. If you win, you can feel superior. That's the only thing you need. You, again, when I say you, I can't, all the time I can't say the ego, the ego. I use you, but you know. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the entire thing. That's called you. Right. In this case, people want to eradicate this. People want to destroy this. Or people want to use these people as their slaves. That's also fine. Because the ego wants to be superior, feel superior. But the ego is created due to this line. Line means, actually this line is ignorance and attachment. These are the two things. Because of ignorance and attachment, this line is created. That separateness is created. When the separateness is created, the ego is created as well as the other. The term other is created. Now you have to deal with. You have to deal with others. You have to deal with the ego. You mean the mind. The mind has to deal with the ego. Now the mind gets hurt, but you can't do anything. The mind gets hurt, it is suffering, it is vexed. What can you do? When the mind is vexed, the ego thinks that it happens because of the others. Therefore, it always wants to deal with others, destroy or love or be cunning, whatever. And this is restless. This is restless due to vexation. It wants to come out of this vexation, ladies and gentlemen. It wants to come out of this vexation. And the mind wants to be happy, but ego never let it be happy. Because the ego is restless, now ego wants to win. The ego wants to win. But the problem is the ego doesn't know that it is created due to ignorance and attachment. The ego doesn't know about this line. The ego only knows that there's a separation. I have opponents. I have foes, enemies. They are my enemies. Right now, they are my friends, but I should be very careful. That's how you associate your friends. Can you give everything to your friend? Can you open up 100% to your friend? Can you trust 100%? Not your friend, not only your friend, but also to your husband or wife. Can you do that? No, you can't. You can't trust anyone. Because the ego can't trust anyone. The ego has to protect its dignity. Because the ego is an entity, ladies and gentlemen. It's an entity. Because of that, it has to do something. It has to do things to protect it. It's like this monastery. This monastery is an entity. Therefore, we have our rules and regulations. We need to protect them. We need to fulfill our goals and dreams because this is an entity. This ego is also like that. But you know that this is not an entity. But we consider this as an entity, and we fulfill all our dreams and goals, because we should have, when we are an entity, then we create our dreams and goals. That happened to the ego as well. The ego feels that, the mind feels that when the mind comes to the stage of ego, then the mind feels that it's an entity. When it feels that it's an entity, now it has its desires. But if only the mind exists, then it doesn't have any desires, because it's an effect. Just after causes, it is created. And it doesn't have to do anything. It doesn't have any purpose. It is created due to causes. It's like this sound. What is the purpose of this sound? Tell me the purpose of this sound. You can't find any purpose of this sound. The sound is created, whether you like it or not. When the causes are there, an effect is created, and it doesn't have any purpose, ladies and gentlemen. It has to be created. It's like a slave. It doesn't have its own opinion. It doesn't have anything, any right. It has to be created, whether someone likes or not. This is how the effect is. Now, if the mind is an effect, it doesn't have any purpose. The mind is the purpose of it, which means the sound. Now the sound is created. That's it. Apart from that, the sound can't do anything. Sound is not there to do anything. The sound is created, which means the sound rises and passes away. When it rises, it can't go to a party. It can't dance with you. It can't sing with you. It doesn't have any purpose to serve. It is created. The sound is created. That is called the mind. When the sound is created and when perception occurs, that's called the mind. That's the mind. Because I can't create a sound. You all know that. No. You all know this. I believe. I can't create the sound. I didn't create the sound. I only create a vibration. I can create a vibration. I means because this is energy and this is energy and this is energy. Energy can create energy. Energy can't create a sound. Everything is energy, you know that. This is energy. In the future we will talk about that. Everything is energy. Condensed energy. If you want, let's use this, then according to this you will understand that. But in the future we will talk about this. Future means not next week, in the future. Future. Because first of all, I want you to understand the basic, and I want you to start practicing the path. After that, we will add more fuel to your engine and you will move forward. Or if I add more fuel right now, the engine will stop because the engine can't bear the fuel. Then the ego will take charge and the ego will listen to this, ego will gather knowledge, now ego can show off. Ego can go to parties, you can go to all the gatherings, you go and you will start to talk about the ego and the world, the energy, condensed energy, about Mars, the moon. That's how the ego works. Because it wants to be superior all the time. That's why it gathers more knowledge. Therefore, I don't want to give you knowledge, but I will just mention this because otherwise you have to agree with me. But I don't want you to agree with me. I want you to agree with Sir Albert Einstein. Because he is not anymore, therefore you can't argue with him. You just need to, and you accept him. Perhaps some people don't accept the Buddha, but they accept Sir Albert Einstein. That's fine. We want you to understand the Dharma. We want you to understand the reality. Therefore, whether you respect the Buddha or the Jesus Christ, or Jesus Christ, or Prophet Muhammad, whoever. It's Albert Einstein. However, this is condensed energy. Then my hand is condensed energy. This is condensed energy. Then if I make a vibration, I can only make a vibration. Then that vibration converts to a sound. Now sound is formed in your mind. When the sound is formed, that is called rupa. That is called rupa. That's a Pali term, you all know that. That rupa, from rupa to vijnana, perception. Rupa to vijnana, that process is called the mind. Now you can see that this is the mind. Then when you hear a sound, and if you can identify and perceive it, that's called the mind. Apart from that, you can't find any other thing called mind. This is the mind. A thought comes to your mind. That means a thought comes first. A thought is created and you identify it. You identify and you perceive the thought. That is called the mind. A color is created and you identify it and you perceive it. Perception occurs. Then the mind is created. That is called mind. Now you can see that there are 6 ways the mind to be created. There are 6 ways. We can't say that there are 6 minds. Not there are 6 minds. There are 6 ways to create, to be the mind to be created. There are 6 ways. Therefore, please don't create the 7th one. The 7th one is the ego. But there is no such thing called 7th one. But you feel all the time. When you see something, you see that I see it, I saw it, I have been seeing it. You use that I part. You use it. You use it because you feel it. You perceive it. You perceive it because of the ignorance and attachment, not because of another sense, Sajjanma. It happened due to ignorance and attachment. The feeling of self, a false sense of existence. That's completely false. It is created due to ignorance and attachment. That's why I told you at the beginning. This is the line. We need to eradicate this line. When we eradicate this line, you can't separate the world. That means you will be nature. You will be the universe. You will be the world. Then you don't have opponents. You don't have anyone to love. But right now, you have someone to love. Perhaps you love your hand. Or your nails. Oh, I love my nails. You can say that. I love my nails. That means you are separated from your nails. Then can I take your hand and get rid of it? No. That's yours. Not only that, everything is yours. If you think that if you think about your existence, everything is yours. You can't separate them. That's why in Hinduism it says Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi means I am everything. Of course, that means we are talking about the consciousness. Consciousness is everything. Or we can say energy is everything. This is only energy we talk about. There are different types of energy. You know some type of energy. We can say kinetic energy, potential energy, nuclear energy. Then the mind has another type of energy, but it is a little bit different to the relevant to energy what we talked about, because those are mechanical energy. Like kinetic energy, potential energy. This energy is mechanical energy. But we have another type of energy. That's called mind energy. Now here, this is mind energy. It is different to others. Mind energy. Mind energy has a purpose. That's called perception. The mind energy can perceive. Kinetic energy can move. Potential energy can store. Mind energy can think or perceive. Therefore, when the mind is created, perception occurs. That's it. There are 6 ways. Through those 6 ways, a mind is created. I would say a mind, or the mind, the mind is created. Through those 6 ways, one at a time. The mind is created and it perceives something. That perception is called the mind. Apart from that, you can't find anything in this body. But the problem is, when the perception occurs, you feel something different. You have own feelings after that. You have feelings. Feelings are created. Because the ego is created. When the ego is created, the mind thinks that it's a being. Now, if you are a being, now you must have feelings, emotions. Now emotions are created. Because you are a human being. Now you see other human beings. You see other animals. You can separate them easily. You can differentiate between them. These are human beings, these are our kind, and these are animals. You easily differentiate them. And you have feelings for them. Emotions for them. Because emotions are created. The mind acts as a being right now. As an entity. I think it's full of sham. Because it has everything. Good and bad. Because it's an entity. You can gather more. You can put more feelings into that. That's why you believe in good. And you don't like bad. Because you have created them. The mind, the ego has created them, good and bad. Therefore, when something happens, you can separate them. Or something good has happened to me, something bad has happened to me. Therefore, you have separate feelings. When something good happens to you, how do you show your emotions? With smiley face. Can't you see that you are acting as a human being? You means I'm talking to your mind. Hey mind. Right now you are acting as a human being. You have emotions. When you are happy, you know what to do. When you are not happy, you know what to do. But now let's talk about the kinetic energy. Tell the same thing to kinetic energy. Kinetic energy. Why are you smiling? Don't you feel a little bit weird? Kinetic energy. Why are you crying? You can't ask that. Because you know that kinetic energy is a type of energy. Therefore, you can't ask that question. But you can ask the same thing from a human being. Why are you crying? Why are you smiling? You look happy, you look sad. You have comments, Sachin. Because you can see those emotions. But the mind is a type of energy. It can't have emotions. What can we do now? Now you can see that it has been distorted completely. Now it became a being. Energy became a being. It's a miracle. Ignorance and attachment can do that. But it's only an illusion, ladies and gentlemen. Only the mind can feel it. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. You can't touch your ego, can you? You can't see your ego. Can you see my ego? Ego means the person. You can perceive, ladies and gentlemen, but you can't see. You can see colors, but you can't see a human being here. You perceive it. Can you hear a human being? That is, can you hear the ego? If you really believe in ego, tell me an evidence and that to exist. One evidence, please. Can you see? You can't. Can you hear? You can't. Can you touch? Can you smell? What is the smell of the ego? But you believe in ego. And you believe ego. Everything is ego to you. The whole life, the whole world, that is the ego. That's why we need to fight against it, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we need to fight. You can't see it, but it governs your everything. It rules your everything. You work according to it. You want to be happy, but it is vexed all the time. It doesn't listen to you. You can't find it. You can't see it. Therefore, you can't tell anything. You can't teach anything. But it is within you. It is created due to ignorance and attachment. And it controls your entire life. It controls and it destroyed. And it is actually it is being destroyed right now. When you listen to the Dharma, this is the only way you can destroy this ego. When you listen to the Dharma, at that time, the ego can't be created. Because ego is created due to ignorance. With the Dhamma, the mind gets enlightened. When the mind gets enlightened, in that environment, attachment can't be created. Because of that, the ego can't be created. Or ego can't exist. That time, you can listen to the Dhamma in your mind. That's why the Buddha said, when you listen to the Dhamma, there are 5 hindrances. There are 5 hindrances in your mind, and it stops you to understand the Dhamma. Hindrance. And when you listen to the Dhamma, those hindrances are deactivated. All 5 at the same time. Actually, that means when you listen to the Dhamma, ignorance suppressed. Ignorance suppresses, then Attachment can't be created. Therefore, the ego can't be created. Now, you listen to the Dhamma in your pure mind. At the same time, there are something called Sapta Sambojjhanga. Those are the qualities, or let's say qualities, those are the qualities you should fulfill to attain Nibbana. Then those Sapta Sambojjhanga develop in your mind when you listen to the Dhamma. 5 hindrances are suppressed, and Sapta Sambojjhanga develop when you listen to the Dhamma. It happens because of this. If you listen, if the ego listens to the Dhamma, nothing happens. But if you can concentrate and try to understand the Dhamma, and if you can apply the Dhamma into your life, perhaps today, right now, you will experience that. Ego will be suppressed, or ego won't be created at that time, because ignorance is suppressed due to the truth. When you understand the truth. To understand the truth, you need to apply the Dhamma into your life. That's why the Buddha asks us to contemplate at the same time. When he preached to someone, he always asks, okay, I will preach to you now. You need to listen and apply that into your life at the same time. That's why we also say the same thing. When you apply that into your life, then the ego is suppressed, or ego won't be created. Then the mind can listen to the Dhamma. Then the mind can practice the path. The mind should practice the path, not the ego. If the ego listens to the Dhamma, the ego will collect all the facts and it will use it to be superior one day. Then it will be useless. This time will be useless. Now, let's come back to this again. Now, due to ignorance and attachment, the ego is created. We need to eradicate ignorance. We can't eradicate the ego. Don't try to eradicate the ego. Try to eradicate the ignorance. To eradicate the ignorance, we need to use the Dhamma. We need to use the truth. We need to see how the ego is created. How the ego is, or how the ego manifests. To see that, we need to talk about anicca. Today, we will talk about anicca again. These are the 3 things we should discuss and we should practice. Anicca, dukkha and anatta. These are the main characteristics of the universe or of nature. Therefore, we need to talk about anicca, we need to identify it, and we need to practice. Practice means we need to apply that into your life and to everything. When you apply it to everything, you will see that everything is the same. Due to the ego, everything is separated. This happened due to the ego. Otherwise, everything is the same. When you apply anicca, when you apply dukkha, you will realize that everything is anatta. Anatta means nothing is unique in this world. Nothing is unique. But with the ego, you feel that you are unique, you are separated, you are completely separated from everyone and you are so unique. With that feeling, you will feel others are also unique. This pen is unique. That means this pen is atta. That's the Pali term for uniqueness. Atta. Then this is completely separated. It has its own identity. Like you have your own identity. You have your own identity. You have created your own identity. You feel your identity. You feel your uniqueness. That's the power of ignorance and attachment. Otherwise, everything is the same. We all know that. Everything is made up of all the body. All the body is here. Are made up of subatomic particles. We all know that. Everything is the same. But you feel uniqueness. You feel that you are completely separated from others. That means you always perceive that everything is atta. That's why we need to understand anicca and realize that nothing is atta. Everything is anatta. Nothing is separated. Nothing is unique. Actually, we can't talk about nothing or something. When we talk about something, nothing, then again we talk about the ego or the world that has been created by the ego. All the words. When you talk about the words, any word you use, that is created by the ego to separate the world. Pen. When we say pen, it is separated from this cube, this, the table. This is separated. What about Nibbana then? When you talk about Nibbana, if you want to achieve Nibbana, in that sense, again, you miss the point. Because when you say Nibbana, Nibbana is separated from the world. That's why you can't have a desire to achieve Nibbana. If you have a desire to achieve Nibbana, you have created something called Nibbana and you try to achieve that. If you try to achieve that, it never happens. It never happens, Vesanjana. If you try to achieve that. That's the reason. That's the reason the Buddha asks us to practice it separately. It is completely separate path. You just need to contemplate. Then everything will happen. You need to you need to contemplate. That means you need to eradicate this line, which means ignorance and attachment. Actually, you don't have to eradicate attachment. You just need to think about the truth. When you think about the truth, then ignorance will be eradicated. Or ignorance won't be formed. I can't say eradicate actually. It won't be formed. Because that is the opposite. Either ignorance or the truth. If you don't know the truth, ignorance exists. If you know the truth exists. This is how it works. Therefore, don't try to achieve anything here. But perhaps when I say that, if you try to achieve something, you feed the ego. When I say that, perhaps you won't like it because you always think that achieving things, achievements are really good because you have read many books, you have listened to tapes. Therefore, you know that achievements should be done. You should have dreams and goals and you should go for that and you should achieve this. This is how we used to believe. But when we talk about the path, we use the same word because we don't have any other word to use. We also use that we need to achieve our salvation. But when we use we need to achieve our salvation, then we have created a salvation and we are trying to achieve that. If we create a salvation, that means we have created a separate thing from the world. Salvation is separated now. Nibbana is separated. You can't separate anything. You can't separate means if something is separated, that is atta. Does that make sense to you? If something is separated, that is atta. But we are here to understand that everything is anatta. Everything is anatta. That means nothing is an entity, nothing is unique, nothing is fixed. Nothing is separated. But to understand that, we can't separate Nibbana. If we separate Nibbana, that means we have created something called Nibbana, now we are going to achieve it. That's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. All the time, you need to achieve something, that's how you used to be, and that's how you practice. That's how you have heard, and that's how you have been taught. Therefore, you try to achieve something. First of all, you need to create something, and you need to achieve that. After that, when you finish it, then you need to create another one. That's why you have dreams and goals, and you are okay with that. You are okay with that, but you know that when you have a dream, your mind is restless and your mind wants to achieve that. Now you can see that achieving something is not the path to happiness. What do you think? Achieving something. There's a path to achieve something. Do you really think that that's the path to happiness? Because when you achieve something, actually your mind is restless and your mind wants to do that, but your mind doesn't like to do it. Let's assume that, tell me, do you want a house or do you want to build a house? That's the thing. You don't want to build a house. You don't want to, do you want money or do you want to earn money? You want money. You want a car. You want a mansion. But you don't want to build them. You don't want to earn. Because earning is achieving. Achieving is so hard. But when you practice the path, that can't be hard. And don't think that when you achieve your salvation, you will be happy. Other than that, you can't be happy. No, when you start practicing from the beginning, you will be happy. You will feel happiness. That's why when you understand the Dharma, nobody, or you don't want anyone to force you to attain Nibbana. When you understand the Dhamma. But if you don't understand the Dhamma, that means the ego exists. Then the ego doesn't want to commit suicide by practicing the path. Therefore, ego pretends like practicing. It goes to Velimadu. It listens to the Dhamma. It goes to teachers' meeting, discussions, Buddhaguna chanting. It goes to everywhere. Discuss the Dhamma, but it is the ego. It pretends. And sometimes it doesn't want to go. Therefore, you should need a teacher to force you to go, push you to go. But when you have understood the Dhamma, you feel happiness, listen. You feel happiness means you will feel lightness of the mind. That means actually you will feel the mind. It is so light. It is so calm, serene. It is so serene, ladies and gentlemen. When you feel that, you don't need extra force to move forward. You will move forward. Your happiness or the serenity of the mind will push you forward eventually. The first bit is the hardest. Therefore, I don't want you to achieve Nibbana. Actually, I want you to understand the Dhamma. Look, now you don't have a big target. Perhaps you like to have a big target. That's how, because you can say that I'm goal-oriented. You can say that. That's how the ego talks. I'm a goal-oriented person. If I have a goal, I will move forward. I need something to move forward. This is how you practice. When you have an exam, what did you do? You study because you have an exam. Then you can say that if I have an aim, we will move forward. We always need an aim to move forward. Those are the characteristics of ego, ladies and gentlemen. It always needs an aim, a desire, a goal, because it acts like an entity. If you think about your company, it's an entity. And it has its own goals and dreams or desires. Now everybody works to fulfill those desires or those dreams or those targets, aims. We can see that there are many things, aims, targets. We talk about these things. That's how the world runs. The world that has been created by the ego. But when you come to your salvation, don't use those worldly things anymore. That's why I told you, before we practice, we should understand these things, ladies and gentlemen. Otherwise, if you try to achieve Nibbana by using those techniques, those tactics, you'll never be successful. I'm telling you. You can't be successful. Because you use something belongs to the ego, to kill it, to destroy it. But it never happened. If you use this, let's assume that you don't like the ego and you want to destroy it and you are going to hate it. Tell it, I hate you. By saying that, you strengthened it. You can't love this, you can't hate this, because both of them belong to the ego. Perhaps when you see beauty, when you see the beauty, then your mind is vexed, especially for young people, young boys and girls. When they see the beauty, then they can't tolerate, perhaps. They want to own it. Then the mind is vexed. Then they want to come out of that vexation. And they go to some spiritual leaders, spiritual teachers. Then they ask them to think about inside of the body. Blood, flesh, disgusting, smelly. They ask them to practice. Because outer body is so beautiful, that's how they think. Outer body is beautiful, but inner body is ugly and smelly and so on. Then they ask them to practice like that. But it's completely wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Don't ever do that. Don't ever hate to win love. Don't ever love to hate, to win hatred. Don't do that. It is completely different. Love is completely different. Hatred is completely different. You can't hate someone to avoid love. You can't love someone to avoid hatred. Then you might think that, then the Buddha said, Nahi verena verani sammanti cha kudachanam averena cha sammanti esa dhammo sanattan. Yes, the Buddha said, averena cha sammanti. When we translate this into English, you may have seen this quote. Hatred can't be ceased by hatred, but only by love. That is completely wrong. That's completely wrong. Don't try to do that. The Buddha didn't ask that. The Buddha didn't taught us to love, because love belongs to ego. Hatred belongs to the ego, ladies and gentlemen. You can't do both of them. If you love, it's a separate feeling. It's a separate mind. If you hate, that's also a separate mind. You can't cover one by another. You can't cancel one by another. It's like a sin and a merit. If you have committed sins, you can't eradicate them by earning merits. Sins will come to you separately. Merits also will come to you separately. They are not cancelling each other. Love is separate feeling and hatred is separate. To cease love, you need to, can I make a word called de-love? That means, actually, love is a process. That's an emotion, ladies and gentlemen. That's an emotion which is created in your mind due to the ego. Love. But you can care for people. I'm talking about love. I know that when I say love, then you might say motherly love. What about that? The same thing. Same thing. That happens due to ignorance and attachment. Okay. Tell me, who is the beloved partner of kinetic energy? Wife or husband of kinetic energy, or child of kinetic energy. You can't find, because that is energy and you can't find a partner. Yeah? What about nuclear energy? Electrical energy? No, you can't find anyone. Then, what about the mind energy? Can you find a wife to love? Can you find a husband to love? I'm talking about the mind, the ego. The ego has a husband or a wife or children, everyone. The ego has that because the ego acts as a being. Ego feels that it's a being. If it is a being, then it should have a family. But if it is a mind, how can a mind has a family, ladies and gentlemen? Tell me the family members of the mind. Tell me their names. You can't find, because it's energy. That's why I told you, love is an emotion. Love is an emotion, ladies and gentlemen. Hatred is an emotion. Emotions are created due to ignorance and attachment. Therefore, if you can eradicate ignorance and attachment by understanding the truth, then you won't have those emotions. Then you might think that if I don't have those emotions, how can I live with my wife and my husband and my children? No, you can live. You can live, but you won't cry. You won't be shaken anymore by listening to anything or by perceiving anything. But right now, you have fear in your mind. Due to those emotions. Fear itself is an emotion. Those emotions are created in the mind due to ignorance and attachment, because now the mind is not pure. It is defiled, and the ego exists in the mind. Therefore, the ego can have a family. The ego can name them. That's why she's my sister, mother, brother, many family members. The ego can create them, and ego can associate them. Then ego can have, or ego can experience fear. Ego can experience suffering, lamentation, so on. Everything. Everything is an emotion. Therefore, if you want to deal with these things, or if you want these emotions, that's fine. You just need to practice what you have been practicing. That's it. If you want to live with the emotions. But if you want to take them out, then practice the path. Then you can care for your people. You can help them. You can feed them. You can do everything, ladies and gentlemen. The Buddha, just think about the Buddha. He didn't have emotions in his mind. He didn't cry. But he helped a lot. He has created the ministry, which is called Buddha Sasana. Because of that, actually, he feeds us. I'm fed because of him. He has created the sasana. He worked hard without emotions. Many of his disciples died before he passed into parinirvana. He didn't cry, but he helped them to achieve their salvation. He slept only 2 hours. He worked 22 hours. He didn't use even a second for himself, because he didn't have the ego. Therefore, when King Siddhartha became the Buddha, from that day, he didn't live for him, because he became the Buddha by eradicating that feeling, that emotion, the ego. Can you work like the Buddha? Can you work like the Buddha? No. You can say that I love my children. Can you love like the Buddha? No. You have your expectations. You love them if they fulfill your expectations. What do you think? That's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. If they make you happy, you love them. If they don't make you happy, your love decreases. I don't say that your love will come to zero, but it decreases. That's why you have, I'm sorry to say this, you have a favorite child. It can't have. It can't be. You can't have. But you have a favorite child. Perhaps it changes from time to time. When they listen to you, when they take higher marks than others, when someone, one of your children be the first of the class, then you love them more. You love him more than the other one. I know. First of all, I said, I'm sorry to say this. I know you argue with this, but I don't have any argument. I have the Dhamma. With the Dhamma, I know that a mother can't love her every child the same. According to the Dhamma, I can't argue with you. Because you can come up with many, but how can I understand your mind? But with the Dhamma, no one can do that. Only the Buddha can do that. Only the Arahant can do that, because they don't feel separation. They don't perceive separation. If separation exists, then you have to use good, better, best. That's right. In every language, we have those things. Good, better, best. Comparative, superlative. We have. That's why the language is created to separate the world. Or not to separate the world. Actually, the language is created to name the world that has been separated. That's why this has a name. We use language to name it, because this is separate. Now tell me, if this and this, these two, are the same, what do you call? This is a pen. What about this? This is also a pen. Yeah? But you feel that these two are different. Therefore, you want two names for these two. Or not. When you feel the separation, you need to name them, ladies and gentlemen. That's why when you see twins, identical twins, you name them separately. They are the same, but you name them separately. That's how we use language. If we don't have a word, we use some words and we name it. However, we create a name. That's how most words have been created. People have named them. In Sinhalese, hungry is called bada gini. A fire in the stomach. When you feel that first, then it's like when you are hungry, it burns. Then you can name it. That feeling, or that pain or that incident. It is completely separated from others. That's how the mind perceives. Therefore, the mind uses names. Words. If you use words, it's really difficult for you to attain Nibbana. Now how can we do that? We can't use words. Actually, we can't use anything in this world. That's why when you listen to the Dhamma, you need to find the meaning. You need to find the meaning. Don't take or don't grab the word, because the word is used to separate the world, it has a meaning of separation. It is egoistic, ladies and gentlemen. Don't take it. Take the meaning. When I say anicca, you should take the meaning. But if you use the word and start contemplating, you never attain Nibbana, because you feed the ego. Now you should see that attaining Nibbana is not simple, and it has a method. You need to practice that method. That's why the Buddha said, to attain Nibbana, you should listen to a person who has achieved at least, or who has become at least a stream enterer. Otherwise, by reading a book, by listening to a worldly person, which means who didn't understand the Dharma yet, you never find the method. Or if you try your own to practice the path, it never happens. You can't do that. Therefore, if someone goes to Himalayas and starts meditating, and one day he can become a yogi, but he can't become an arahant. He can't become a stream enterer, because this is completely different. And the other thing is, perhaps you might think that why should we listen to the Dhamma? Why can't we just practice the path? Like now, if you want to meditate, you can meditate. If you know some methods, you can meditate. That's how most people do, ladies and gentlemen. When they want to meditate, when they want to achieve their salvation, then suddenly they go somewhere and they start meditating. Perhaps you have done that before. But you can't achieve your salvation by doing that. You need to learn. I think this is the only philosophy, or this is the only salvation. Or this is the only, I would say, philosophy. This is the only philosophy you should learn before you practice. Otherwise, when I say philosophy, perhaps it's wrong, but I would say this is the only salvation. Let's say this is the only salvation, because there are many salvations. You have seen people want to achieve their salvation because they have created their salvation and they try to achieve it. That's why they experience pain to achieve their salvation. They harm their body. They create a pain in the body and try to achieve their salvation. Perhaps go to heaven. There is a path. You need to harm your body. You need to bear the pain. You need to create a pain, or you need to create pain, and you need to bear it and offer it to God. Perhaps people believe that. There are many salvations. But this is the only salvation you should learn before you practice. You should learn. Actually, when it comes to Hinduism, you don't have to learn anything. You just need to practice. You go to your teacher, and your teacher will ask you to meditate, and perhaps he will give you a color, then you need to look at the color. That's called kasina in Pali. Kasina, that means you look at that, whatever the object, and you start meditating. You concentrate your mind. That is called one-pointedness, and you do that. Anyone can do one-pointedness, but Buddha didn't ask us to do that. The Buddha's teaching is completely different. Therefore, you need to learn the Buddha's teaching first of all. Otherwise, if whatever the method you use will be wrong. Because all the methods are worldly methods. all the things. That's why I told you. When I say Nibbana, Nibbana is the salvation. Nibbana, the Buddha said Nibbana, for the salvation. That is the word for salvation. But when we say Nibbana, you can understand that Nibbana, there is something called Nibbana now, and it is separated from the world, and now you try to achieve that. That means now there is a path you to achieve that, but that path is not to happiness. Because when you have a target, you are talking about the future. Tell me a present target if you have. Just to understand. Tell me one target you have in the present. One target that you can create in the present. I have a target in the present. Can you? No. Nibbana is in the present, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, if you talk about Nibbana, you are talking about future. I will achieve Nibbana, I will achieve my salvation tomorrow. That means you are talking about tomorrow. If you are talking about the future, then right now you are vexed. Because you are talking about the future and your desire is in the future. You have a desire right now, but you can fulfill it in the future. Until that, you need to work and you need to move towards it. But you want to achieve that. You want to achieve it now. You want to experience it now. But your target is in the future. It's like you are hungry. Okay, let's do that. When you are hungry, please come to me. I will let you understand this properly. When you are hungry, please come to me. You are so hungry. And you come to me, then I said, I will give you food tomorrow. In that sense, you will understand this. You are hungry. That means you need food right now. You want to eat right now. But I will give you food tomorrow. Is that okay? But I will give food tomorrow, but I'm not going to give it now. That means you have to wait. Perhaps I ask you to bring some water and do all the small things. Then you have to do that. Because I asked you to do it. Because I'm going to give you that. That means path is not happy. If you can eat right now, you will be happy. That is, you are happy. Therefore, don't ever think that I will be happy. There is only one way to be happy, that's I am happy. Which means right now, if you want happiness, you can achieve it right now. That means actually it is not achieving. It's not an achievement anymore. Because if it is an achievement, then you should have a future target and you should move towards that. Now, can't you see that this is completely different to what you have experienced so far? That's why we need to discuss. That's why we need to talk about these things. Don't use your knowledge you have gathered so far. I'm not saying that they are useless, but they are. Because you used it to achieve your goals and dreams. You have created your own dreams. That's why you have created your own unhappiness, and you try to move towards that and be happy one day when you reach to that. You have created your own unhappiness. You have created your own hell, ladies and gentlemen. That's the problem. If you don't know the Dhamma, or if you don't understand the Dhamma, now you can see that you create your own hell. Target. Desire, a target, all the things, these are not heaven. You create your own hell and you try to go to that hell. The path to hell can't be happy. It is vexatious. It is vexatious. That's why when you try to achieve something, it is vexatious. You work hard. You can't live it. because it's your target. If you leave it, you feel so inferior. You can't. That's why. This is a trap. When you have a desire, you can't give it up. When you give it up, you become a loser. Then someone says, once a loser is always a loser. Then you can't bear that. Can I use that name to you? Loser. You are a loser. 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 Then what? Huh? Well, what happened? Now you can say that. You can't bear that. You can't bear that because you feel so inferior when you hear that. But you would prefer to hear that winner, winner, winner. But bullies never use that. You are winner, you are winner. No, you haven't heard that. Loser, loser, loser. You have heard that. Children have heard that. Because some children always use that to bully. If your child cries because of that, remember, you have created his hell in front of him. Because you didn't teach him the truth. Perhaps you don't know the truth. But you sent him. You sent him to school. And she went. She can't tolerate anymore. She was bullied. No one was there to help her. She can't fight against it. She doesn't know the truth. She feels that she's a loser. But she doesn't want to be inferior. When she cries, she comes home and cries. That's what happened to your children, ladies and gentlemen. That happened not because of those bullies. That happened because of the ego. We can cure that. That's what I told you. That's why you need to take the refuge. We need to take refuge in the Buddha. Buddha means salvation. Buddha is not a person, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are not talking about a person. There was a person, but we are not talking about that person. We are talking about his wisdom. The salvation. You all have experienced this, but still you don't know the answer. But you will find the answer. Therefore, don't try to achieve your salvation in the future. There is no method, no path you to achieve your salvation in the future. Another thing is, don't ever think that having a desire or having an aim is a good thing. It's not good. If you want to be happy, you need to achieve something. Oh, actually, I can't use achieve again. The word achieve, no, I can't use that. Because to achieve, you should go to future. Between that, you have to suffer and you have to be vexed. The path is vexatious. The path is so painful. You all know that. You have achieved something. You have achieved your education. You have achieved your businesses. You have achieved your family life. And so on. You have achieved many things. To achieve that, that means to go to hell, you have destroyed your heaven. And you are deceived by pleasure. You are deceived by pleasure. Because when you achieve your goal, that means when you reach to future, that is the future. Can you remember the future? You reach to that. When you reach to that, your vexation level or level of vexation decreases. When the level of vexation decreases, you feel happiness. Not happiness, actually, pleasure. Then, at that time, you were deceived by thinking that that is the happiness. Then you thought that achieving a target, achieving something, a goal, dream, then you will be happy. That's the only way to fulfill happiness, or that's the only way to gain happiness. That's how you thought, and you practice the same. And you have been practicing the same. Therefore, each time you have a goal and move towards that. But Jesus Christ once said, I will show you all common religions. I'll show you what those philosophers, spiritual teachers, spiritual leaders said. Jesus Christ once said, blessed are the poor in spirit. Can't you remember that? Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit. But what do you mean by that? Because you believe that if you are in high spirit, it's so good. You are in high spirit when you are achieving your goals, ladies and gentlemen. That means if you move towards your goals and dreams, you are in high spirit. Therefore you think that high spirit is really good for your life. No. Actually, it kills you. Therefore you can't go to the kingdom of heaven. Kingdom of heaven. What is the kingdom? What is the kingdom of heaven? Jesus Christ talk about. Kingdom of heaven after you die. Is that the heaven you go after you die? No. That's not what I believe, ladies and gentlemen. He said, that the kingdom of heaven belongs to the poor in spirit. That means if you don't try to achieve anything. When I say that, you have to be very careful. Oh, I have a friend, he doesn't want to achieve anything. He is a lazy person. Then will he go to heaven? No, I'm not talking about that. And perhaps our kids will take that. Then I don't want to be in high spirit. I don't want to practice anything. I don't want to have any goal. Then I will go to heaven. No, I'm not talking about that. If you are poor in spirit, you don't have goals. You don't have dreams. Oh, when I say that, it's a little bit weird. When you don't have a dream, like you are like a miserable person. When you don't have a dream. That means people always want to achieve something. That means people always want to be vexed. And they want to use the path of vexation, or vexatious path. Then they need to achieve the goal. But they are talking about heaven. You won't find the kingdom of heaven after you die. You will find the kingdom of heaven right now. If you can leave all your desires away, all your desires behind, if you can leave them, if you can free your mind from all the desires you have, you are poor in spirit. You are then blessed are the poor in spirit. For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. What a saying. If you can't understand the real meaning of that, you will wait until you die to go to heaven. Actually, I really like to speak to Christians. I really like to speak to Christians. Because if they know what Jesus Christ said, they will definitely go to the kingdom of heaven. Otherwise, according to my point of view, no one will go. Because everybody is waiting until their death. Like Buddhist people are waiting to pass into Parinibbana until their death. That's why you have seen banners, posters. May you attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. You may have seen that. But by seeing it, you can't achieve that. If you want to achieve Nibbana, right now, don't have a target. But in this case, can you live without a target? That's the problem. Can you live without an aim? Can you live without a dream? No, you used to do that because that's the fuel to the ego. Then the ego can move forward with the target. Because the ego is an entity, ladies and gentlemen. If something is an entity, it should have a target. Like this monastery, we have a target. Everybody will attain Nibbana. Therefore, we help everyone to attain Nibbana. That's our target. We don't have any other targets. Whoever comes to this monastery, we always preach to them to attain Nibbana, to find their salvation. That's our target. If someone comes to do a musical show, then we reject. Because this is not the place to do that. If someone comes to do a Bodhi Puja, we reject it. Because this is not the place to do that. This is only for achieving your salvation. That means we have a target, because this is an entity. The ego is an entity. Actually, it's not an entity, but it feels that it's an entity. Therefore, it collects all these things. Because it needs to maintain itself. It needs to maintain the entity. That's why it has a family. Then it can maintain. That's why it has a character. You have a character, don't you? You have a character. Can I destroy your character? You have a fear. In front of everyone, if I ask you to, if I say something bad, if I insult you, that means I can destroy your character. Because you have a character. If you have a character, how can you go to the kingdom of heaven? That doesn't mean that you should be a characterless person. That means a bad character. If something has a bad character, is a characterless person, no. You should be neutral. And don't be afraid that when you understand the Dharma, you will lose everything. Nothing will lose. What will lose is the ego. You will have your education. You will have your knowledge. I have understood the Dhamma at least up to a certain level. I can remember everything. I can use my education for good. I can remember I use physics, chemistry, everything when I preach. I can remember everything. I can remember my mother. I can remember you all. I can help. Nothing happened. But if you leave us, I won't cry. If you insult me, I won't cry. Isn't that a victory? When I come to you, I don't expect any respect from you. Therefore, whether you respect me or not, I don't mind. You can insult me if you want. You can mistreat me. That's fine. But you can be neutral towards me. That's also fine. I don't have an aim because I don't like aims. But before I was a goal-oriented person. I wanted an aim all the time. When I have an aim, I was so energetic. And I wanted to achieve that. And I achieved it. I was so happy. And I was so foolish. Because I have created my own hell over my heaven. That's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to be happy. That's why I created all the goals and dreams. Can you imagine how foolish I was? Because I wanted to be happy. Therefore, I have destroyed my happiness and I created something in the future which is a hell. I have created it. I read many books. And they said that, create a hell. You should create a hell. You must create a hell. If you don't have a hell, then you are not a human being anymore. Those are the things I have read. Those are the tapes I have heard. Listen, I paid for them. It says how to become a millionaire. But now I can read the name of the book. Before I didn't see that. Now I can see it. How to make a hell out of your life. That's what the name of all the books I have read. I'm not insulting them. I love them. All the authors, they wanted to create an impact. I never hate them, ladies and gentlemen. I only hate this. That's not hate. I want this to be eradicated from the mind. Not only mine, but also everyone's. Well, this is the problem. Because of this, I was deceived. When I took a book, I thought that I will become a millionaire and I will have a fantastic life. I will have. Huh? Just think about your life, ladies and gentlemen. What is your favorite time? The past, the present, or the future? The favorite time you always talk about? Future. This creates it. Future. The mind doesn't have a future, ladies and gentlemen. The mind occurs in the present. It can't pass the present. It can't pass the present, ladies and gentlemen. It happens in the present and it passes away in the present. It rises in the present and it passes away in the present. It doesn't have a future. But the ego is an entity, therefore it has a past, the future. It has a future, and actually it doesn't have a present. That's why it doesn't talk about the present. But you talk about the present in present continuous tense. But it is not the real present. Real present doesn't have a time. That is the point. The theory of everything acts. The theory of cause and effect. That's the point where the theory of cause and effect acts. It doesn't have a time. You can't count the time in minutes or seconds or milliseconds or nanoseconds, picoseconds, no. But no one talks about the present, because every mind is possessed by the ego due to the ignorance and attachment. Then if you can see any other enemy than ignorance and attachment, you are the ego. Please understand this. That's the only thing. You need to understand this and you need to apply this into your life. Because I'm talking about your life. You always focus on the future. You know that. And when you try to achieve your salvation, and again you create your salvation in the future and you try to achieve it. No. I want you to apply the Dhamma right now. Apply the Dhamma into your life. Whatever you do, it doesn't matter. You apply the Dhamma into your life. Because this is a way of life. The path to Nibbana is a way of life. That means you can live. You can live and practice. You need to live and practice. Live and practice. In the present, you need to apply the Dhamma. Don't ever have a future plans. But for your family, you should have a future plans. That doesn't matter. Your kids will do A-levels, will go to universities. That's fine. Those are future plans. Those are future plans, but not to the mind. That's to the society. That is for the society. In the society, we have certain things to do in certain age. Therefore, that you can give that to the society. When you come to it, you will do that. If you want to study, you study it now. You study something now. That's what you need to do. Don't think about your future exams. If you have an exam, study right now. Don't think about that. But the problem is you can't stop thinking about it because you are possessed by the ego. The ego wants to perceive all three times. That's how it feels that it's a being. That's how it feels that it's an entity. It's dreamless, It wants to feel that it's an entity because the mind, the ignorant mind, always believes that everything is an entity in this world. Therefore, first of all, it wants to believe that it is an entity. To feel that it is an entity, it wants to perceive all three times. If you can live in all three times, you are an entity. But if you live only the present, you are not an entity, you are an effect. If the future exists, then you can say that everything is an entity in this world. But we all know that The future is created in the mind. The future is created in the mind. It is an illusion. It is a probability or possibility. Future. You use your past memories and you rebuild them. Give me the answer for this. Then you will realize this. If you really believe in the future, create a future incident, but you can't take your past memories. Create one. If you really believe in the future, if the future exists, explain to me one incident, but you can't use your past memories. Now you can see that the mind uses, the mind means the egoistic mind. This egoistic mind uses your memory and shuffle it and creates its goals, and it creates its future. Now it can feel that it's an entity. That's how you have the future. Otherwise, this future is an illusion. Perhaps you think that next week I will go on a trip. I will go on holiday. Tomorrow you will die. Then how did you see your future then? If you were to die tomorrow, how can you talk about your next week? But you have created it, you have visualized it. And if we ask you to draw it, and you can draw that, because you used your past memories and shuffled them, and you created a future. That's called a mind-made future. If you live in a mind-made future, you will miss the present. You will miss. Present means I'm not talking about the present continuous. Don't use the time when I say the present. Present means the point where the theory of cause and effect applies. That's the present I'm talking about. Otherwise, you have heard about the present. Be careful. The present. You miss the present, which means you miss the heaven. You missed the beauty, the ethereal beauty which came from heaven. You missed them. You only see some sort of beauty. But if you really want to see divine beauty, come to the present. Then you will see that everything is so beautiful. But the ego wants to separate. That's why there are two words, beauty and ugly. For the ego, there are some objects or people who are beautiful and some are ugly. But when you understand the Dharma, if you can eradicate the When you can eradicate ignorance completely, then you will come to your right mind. Right mind means you will come to the mind. Then you will experience the life. That is an ethereal experience. You must experience it. There are some books, must-read books. There are some movies, must-watch movies. There are some experiences, must experienced things. There's only one. That is the life. That's what the Jesus Christ said. I am the life. I am the life. Don't try to find the life in others, in churches, in temples. Don't try to find your salvation, or don't try to find a sanctuary in anyone. It's within you. I am the life. If you can eradicate, or if you can seize the process of the ego, then you are the life. That means your very mind is the life. That is the heaven. Now, please tell me, can you sacrifice something? Or what can you sacrifice to go to heaven? Name them. What can you sacrifice? What can you sacrifice, ladies and gentlemen? And you definitely know that if you really want to go to heaven, you have to die. That means you have to sacrifice your life. Can you go to heaven without dying? Do you know any method? Apart from that, again, elephant and tail thingy. Apart from that, do you know any other method to go to heaven without dying? No. Therefore, if you really want to go to heaven, you need to sacrifice your life. Are you ready? If you are ready, then please sacrifice. That sacrificing is not committing suicide or giving your life, or that means killing yourself. Sacrifice your mind, sacrifice your work, sacrifice your life. If you don't sacrifice your life, you never get to the kingdom of heaven. That's the only way, ladies and gentlemen. That's the only way. That's why I have when I understood this, at the same time I have sacrificed my life. I have sacrificed my life means I am a dedicated disciple to the Buddha, which means to the salvation. I sacrifice my whole life. Whole life means every minute in my life. That means every mind in my life. I use every mind in my life to the salvation. That's called sacrificing the life. you think. Otherwise, you will get what you deserve. You will get what you deserve. You will get what you sacrificed for. If you sacrifice your life for your children, you will get them back. How? You will go home after your death. You will stay with them. You will be wandering here and there. You never achieve your salvation, or you never see the kingdom of heaven. You never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, sacrifice your life. When you are ready to sacrifice your life, let me know. We'll be there for you. I know now you try. I want you to try. And one day you will sacrifice. That doesn't mean that you need to stay with us. If you can sacrifice your life. But it's really difficult for you to sacrifice your life, entire life. That means while you are feeding your kids, you contemplate the Dharma. If you can do that, that means you sacrifice your life. That's what we do. I preach to you. I preach to you, that means I sacrificed my life. I'm sacrificing right now. All the time, I'm sacrificing. They are sacrificing. Monks are sacrificing. Sila Shravikas are sacrificing. They all are sacrificing. But they, Sila Shravikas, have to maintain the kitchen. They clean the kitchen and they keep the kitchen clean. They have to work. But while they are working, they have to sacrifice their life to their salvation. That means from each mind, they have to practice the path. They have to use the mind to practice the path. If you can do that, you will win. You can't sacrifice half of your life. If you sacrifice half of your life, you will get half of the kingdom of heaven, and rest of things will be the hell. It's hard. I know that. It's hard. It's hard because we are talking about Nibbana. We are talking about salvation. We are not talking about O-levels, ladies and gentlemen. We are not talking about A-levels. We are talking about the Nibbana. We are talking about Nibbana, the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Once you achieve it, you don't have to achieve it anymore. You won't have any problems. You won't have suffering. You won't have to suffer. You don't have any suffering. You don't have any vexation. That will be the victory. You won't have to come back to this world. You will live emotion-free life. Perhaps you think that is not good, but you won't experience that. If you experience that, you will be over the moon. Therefore, please think. I can preach to you, but at the same time I have to ask you to practice the path, because I can't just preach to you and let you do whatever you want, because that's not teaching. That's saying. If I'm a teacher to you, then I should help you to find your path. That's why every time, whatever the language I speak, I use for the sermon, I ask. Whoever comes to the sermon, I ask him to practice the path. Perhaps it's unfair. If Mr. President comes sermon, I will ask him to practice the path. I will ask him to sacrifice his life fully. Then perhaps you may ask, then how can he rule the country? He can, if he can understand the Dhamma. He can rule the country. He can rule the country up to a certain level. After that, he will leave that, because he will leave that and he will pass into someone, his successor. Because now someone wants to be in power. Because once you eradicate this, once you will have emotion-free mind, then you won't need all these things. Once you have a desire-free mind, you won't fight for them. But right now, they fight for them. To serve the country, they kill people. They destroy others to serve the country. Can you imagine that? What a compassionate mindset. To serve others, they will kill the others. That's how it is. The egoic or egocentric mind. That is the most selfish thing in the world. Therefore, sacrifice your life. We will learn how to sacrifice your life. But you need to try. You need to try. Will you do that? Association is very important. If you can associate with someone who practices every day, it will encourage you. It will encourage you not to have a dream or goal, only understand the truth. Therefore, don't have an aim. Try to understand the Dharma. That means try to understand the truth in the present. When the process occurs, you need the Dhamma. With the Dhamma, it passes away. After that, again, the process of the mind occurs, then you need the Dhamma. That's why, at the present moment, you need to apply the Dhamma. Don't try to apply the Dhamma when you go home. Try to apply the Dhamma right now. When you walk, apply the Dhamma. When you speak, apply the Dhamma. When you cook, apply the Dhamma. When you drive, apply the Dhamma. When you see, apply the Dhamma. When you hear, apply the Dhamma. When you live, finally, when you live, apply the Dhamma. That is called samadhi, concentration. That is called samadhi in this sasana. That's why I told you, you have to learn a lot when you practice the path. This is the only philosophy I have seen, or spiritual philosophy I have seen. We have to learn before we practice, because this is completely different to the world. This is completely opposite to the world. All religions are created to achieve something good in this world. But this is supramundane. It is to go beyond the world. Therefore, it is completely different. Every word is different. We will learn them. We will learn the method and we will move forward. But focus on Nibbana, your salvation. You need to focus, because in the present you need to apply the Dhamma. Therefore you need to focus. Don't create any aim, you just focus on your life. When you feel the ego focus on that. That's it. Look at that. And see how it is created. When you are angry, see how it is created. You were not born with anger. You know that. It was created. Therefore you will see the process. Then anger is a process. It has its own causes. If you can eradicate those causes, it will disappear. Right? Likewise, you will understand this. But when you are angry, you need to apply that. When you are suffering with lustful feelings or sensual desires, you need to apply that. It will happen in the future, it will happen in the present, but this will be a huge journey. I'll see you next week. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Shem be with you. Thank you.